What's going on, Jags fans? Happy Friday, April 19th. The NFL draft is just right around the corner. And me and UCF Jaguar come in here today to talk about some NFL draft strategies and things that we want to see the Jaguars do in this year's upcoming draft. UCF, man, thank you so much for taking some time out of your evening and coming here onto the channel.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We got, 6 more days until the NFL draft. I'm just really excited for the day to be here and, kind of stop projecting players and start really figuring out who we got and how they're going to help the Jaguars in 2024 and beyond. So ready for it.
Same here, man. I mean, it's definitely, I got to say, as Jags fans, I think this is probably our favorite event of the season because usually we're looking at the NFL draft and prospects. I mean, at the beginning of November? This past year was different. Times have changed, but nonetheless, I'm excited for this NFL draft to come up and to see Balky really mess up rounds 3 through 4 and even 5 through 6 because we know he can draft well in the first round, but time will tell though. But Jags fans, before we go ahead and get into this, man, make sure you guys go ahead and go follow UCF Jaguar on all of his socials, man. Go subscribe to him on YouTube. His links and his Twitter, all of that good stuff will be in the description down below. Same thing for me. Make sure you guys go ahead and follow me on all of my socials. The link trees will be in the description down below. And lastly, before we go ahead and get into all of this draft talk, man, I got to give UCF Jaguar his flowers, man. Let him know he is the OG of Jaguars YouTube, the best Jaguars YouTuber out there, man. So make sure you guys go ahead and, like I said, go check out all of his socials. But UCF, man, before we really start talking about what you would do kind of going into this year's draft, man, I mean, what are some of the positional values that you really identify with this team? And what kind of direction would you like the Jaguars to go in if you were in Trent Baalke's shoes?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because when you look at the Jaguars team, it feels like the fan base is kind of in a debate over do the Jaguars get wide receiver or cornerback at number 17 overall. But while both of those are needs, they're both needs in a different kind of unique way because at cornerback, it feels like the Jaguars need just a good, solid cornerback that can be a starter level player over the course of the next, 4, potentially 5 years with a 5th-year option. They need a good, solid corner, but at wide receiver, they need a specific type of wide receiver because the Jaguars right now, when you look at the interior pass threats, I love Christian Kirk, I love Evan Ingram, and we even saw a lot of good things out of Parker Washington. So it feels like the Jaguars' interior receiving threats are pretty good, but on the outside, you have Gabe Davis and Zay Jones starting, week 1 with the way it shows right now. And I know we all love our own players, but if we're going to be playing against Miami in week 1, you think they're going to be scared of that outside wide receiver duo? And on our end, we're looking at the other side and saying, how are we going to be guarding Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? The Jaguars play the Eagles this year. You got to guard Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. So when you look at internally, it's oh yeah, there's a nice group. We've seen Zay Jones do some good things. Gabe Davis should be great, but then you kind of compare it to other teams around the league, and it doesn't look as good. So the Jaguars just while they need a good cornerback, they almost need an elite wide receiver. Finally, a guy that is just explosive, is just really, really good, has the route tree, can do everything, can make the 50-50 balls, just everything that you would want from a wide receiver one. The Jaguars need to draft their Jamar Chase, need to draft their Justin Jefferson, and these players typically come in the NFL draft. So, that's a big thing. And then, of course, you can always use some work in the trenches. At the Jaguars draft, the offensive lineman, they might not start week 1, but, they're at least a developmental piece because the Jaguars don't have a lot invest when it comes to when you look at the future of the Jaguars at left tackle. You have Cam Robinson on a $20+ million cap hit deal going into his last year of his deal, and you also have Walker Little going into the last year of his rookie deal. So you don't have a lot there. Then defensive line, you can always use more in a defensive line. So there's a whole lot of different areas the Jaguars can go here.
Yeah, let me ask you really quickly, because you brought up a good point about the offensive line before I address some of the other stuff you brought up. You talked about, Walker Little on an expiring deal, the last year of his rookie contract, Cam Robinson on an expensive contract. So, going into 2025, you're not guaranteed that other tackle position opposite side of Anton, regardless if he's on the left or right side. If the Jaguars, hypothetically speaking, took a tackle with the 17th overall pick, what would your overall feelings and reactions be regardless of the player? Let's just stick with the position for now.
Look, the further away we get from like last season, I think people are kind of forgetting how fed up we were with the offensive line. Like, I remember when the season was over, I'm like, we need to address the trenches offensively and
Yep.
defensively. And what did the Jaguars do? The Jaguars got healthy and they added Mitch Morse. So it's really not like they did a whole lot, even though we're kind of sitting here like kind of feeling like we solved the offensive line problem. I mean, we really didn't. I mean,
Mhm.
we kind of have band-aids all over the place. The only permanent fixture we have is right tackle Anton Harrison. So if you're telling me the Jaguars could get like a really good, left tackle like the dude out of, Penn State, for example, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but if he
Yeah.
somehow falls to number 17 overall and all of a sudden the Jaguars have the right tackle going into the second year of his rookie deal, and then a rookie left tackle that we basically have two bookend tackles on cheap deals for the next 3-4 years. Like, I am not going to complain about that. So I absolutely will not be mad about investing in the offensive line. And honestly, this whole thing is about Trevor Lawrence. When Trevor Lawrence is playing well and when he's healthy, he's good. I mean, before the injury, before he hurt his ankle in that Bengals game, he was 12-4 in his previous 16 regular season games. Then all of a sudden we finished the year the way we did. And then now even Jaguar fans are sitting here acting like Trevor Lawrence is trash. It's like, no, like,
Ridiculous.
I've seen this man play when he's healthy, when he has his receiving options, and when he is not trying to play with a bum ankle, a bum knee, a concussion, an injury to his throwing shoulder. It's just a whole lot. So really, like, the game of football, I don't think will ever change. I think it's always just runs through the trenches, and I definitely wouldn't be mad about that.
Okay, the only issue I take with that point is you addressed, like, okay, if we take a tackle with the 17th overall pick, which honestly, in retrospect, is fine depending on how the board falls, you have your plug and play left tackle of the future and a rookie contract, and you've got Anton Harrison, your right tackle of the future, if you want to keep him there on the second year of his rookie contract. So you're assuming, right? That means Cam Robinson's gone. Walker Little is on a, still the depth piece, still the swing tackle is what it sounds like. I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
I mean, honestly, the fact that Cam Robinson is honestly still on the team on the deal that he's currently on, why are we paying this man $20+ million? It's not like he's on a bad contract. The Jaguars could cut him and save $16 million. And I know talking bad about Cam Robinson, like, a lot of Jags fans will get mad at you. But at the end of the day, like, when you compare a healthy Cam Robinson to a healthy Walker Little, they're not that much different. The biggest difference,
I think it's a marginal difference.
Yeah, the only big astronomical difference is the contract that they're playing on. So yeah, I mean, you get a left tackle, you can figure out, okay, do you want Walker Little to start the year, or would you rather just plug this guy in and let him go? But then you have a good swing tackle with Walker Little, and then I think you move forward with that. So that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, and like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear and on the same page about that, because from what it looks like, we're this far into the offseason and the Jaguars still have Cam Robinson on roster, which I'm fine, right? Because they got $30 million in cap space. They still have cap flexibility to work with for the rookie class, and if they potentially want to go out there and make a trade. So my mindset is at the point where Cam Robinson is going to be our starting left tackle going into this year. They can still cut him if they want. They can still trade him and try to get some value out of him. But if the Jaguars are going to keep Cam Robinson, which it seems like they have their entire starting five on the offensive line, there's no need to take a first-round tackle right now. The Jaguars are in a position where they're not only good enough to compete, right, and potentially take themselves over the top with this draft class. What they can do in the first couple of rounds of this year's draft is get guys that are going to be plug-and-play starters right now. You're not taking a tackle in the first round this year to sit behind Anton Harrison and Walker Little and Cam Robinson. That shouldn't be the thinking. I understand if they're going to be a great piece long-term, we need guys that can play right now. And that would be my only gripe against taking an offensive tackle, regardless of who falls on the board for the most part at 17 overall.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're going to draft a tackle there. I'm more so
I don't
saying,
think they will
like,
either.
If there is a thing there where, like, the number 5 player on their board is a tackle and he's there right there. And then, there's just, you're getting all your favorite players to snipe from you. And, you have the 5th player on your board available and he's a tackle, but the other guy on your board is like your number 14 guy on your board and it's a cornerback.
Right.
The delta there, like that's the Jaguars have gotten in a lot of trouble in the past when it comes to drafting for need. And I know we all talk about, we need wide receiver, cornerback, edge, but if you're passing up on, on guys in the process that could that do have great value, that could benefit you, because these rosters turn over like crazy. When we look at ourselves from 2 years from now, we're going to have a completely 50 to 60% of this roster is going to be turned over. So it just moves quickly in the NFL.
It does. And something else that I wanted to ask you too, because it sounds like from what you addressed earlier too, it sounds like wide receiver and corner are your 2 biggest positional needs when we differentiate between best player available and positional need for the draft. But also you talk about, hey, this entire thing is just about Trevor Lawrence. Like you've seen, I've seen, we've all seen when Trevor Lawrence is upright and healthy and he's protected, right? He is a very good quarterback in this league, and we know he can only continue to ascend. So for you, is it offensive line first? Is it receiver? Is it corner? How do you differentiate between your positional needs?
Yeah, I would put that elite wide receiver 1 at number 1, because I do think that at this moment, while it's not an elite group, Tyson Campbell is still a good cornerback. I mean, I know
very good.
That's another player where, he got hurt and then he didn't play the same after his injury, and he wasn't good after the injury, but he didn't just forget how to play football. And a lot of Jags fans are kind of discounting how good he is because of that. It's he's still a good cornerback. Darnell Savage, going back to the kind of the positional role he played in college, playing the slot cornerback spot, he should be solid. And I know Darby's getting a little bit older, but he is a starting echelon type of player. So of course, maybe depth might be a little bit low there. And of course, the Jaguars can definitely improve at that position. But, I think the thing that would really take us to the next level is getting that true, wide receiver 1 to finally make this Jaguars offense explosive. I know we were all wanting it last year, and, there were signs where it could have been like that, but Ridley and Trevor Lawrence never really got into a groove. And, of course, the offensive line was, slowly getting more hurt to the point where in December, it didn't even look like an NFL offensive line. So for me, I like wide receiver as my biggest one. And then, probably cornerback next. And then honestly, I think my number 3 position of need is edge rusher, because I really do think that when you look back on a 2023 season, I think that the biggest reason why the Jaguars fell off the rails was injuries, but you can't do anything about that. Okay. But I think the one thing that the Jaguars could have controlled that they got completely wrong is that Balky was so against trying to sign any edge rusher. Okay. There was, I think his name Leonard Floyd that was available out there that got signed to the Bills in August, and he got 10 or 11 sacks on the year. You had Jadeveon Clowney in your building, and then he left and got 9 sacks for the Ravens. And the Jaguars didn't go there at all. And then what did the backup edge rushers do? DeJuan Smoot and Kayvon Chason combined for 3 sacks. You know what I mean? Your third leading sacker on a team was Roy Robertson Harris with 4 sacks. So losing Arden Key and replacing him with a limped up DeJuan Smoot and
an injured Ventrell Miller in the 4th round.
Yeah, it's just the Jaguars completely whiffed there. And I think that, what did the Jaguars do this offseason to address the edge rusher position? They signed Trevin Gibson to a year $1 million deal. So there's still a major hole there. They need to get another edge rusher in here because we need pass rush. You know what I mean? We can't have now you look at the quarterbacks in AFC South. We got CJ Stroud, we got Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis all going into their second years, and at least one of these guys, probably at least 2 of these guys, are going to explode in year 2. So they need to figure out a way to get this quarterback time here.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, every point I completely agree with. I think the only thing I would change with your sentiment, because you went wide receiver 1 in terms of need, corner, and then edge. For me, we need an outside corner. We definitively need an outside corner. Then I say wide receiver 1, and then getting a third edge opposite side of Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. Now, with the wide receiver position specifically, I want to be greedy. Like, I want to be selfish. I want to get Trevor Lawrence, a guy who was a generational prospect, is a generational prospect. He's never played with a top 15 receiver in football. Think about that. How crazy is that? And I mean no disrespect to Ridley. Like, seriously, you have had a layup getting the greatest generational quarterback prospect gift wrapped into you as your first year as a general manager, and you've had now 4 seasons to get him a wide receiver 1, get him an elite wide receiver, and you failed to do so. Every good, competent general manager across football has gotten their quarterback, who is a franchise quarterback, especially the young ones, a legitimate wide receiver 1, if not 2 of them. Take a look, like you mentioned earlier, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown with the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. You take a look at Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins for Joe Burrow. Tua Tagovailoa has Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. The list goes on and on. It is a disgrace that Trevor Lawrence has never played with a top 15 wide receiver. That needs to change, and you need to at least address it in this year's draft. Now, do I think that the Jaguars are going to take a wide receiver 1 at 17 overall? No, I do not. Do I want to be greedy and say that they should? Should they go out there and get a Brian Thomas Jr., A.D. Mitchell, etc.? I would like that, but I doubt that they would. So I think positional value that I go with into this draft realistically is the Jaguars. They need that outside corner. I don't trust Ronald Darby to stay healthy for the entire year. And look, even though he is an upper echelon type of starter where he's serviceable at this point in his career, we really need that difference maker on the outside. If you can have Tyson Campbell locked up for these next couple of years, get him on a contract extension when he's healthy, like we talked about, because he didn't just forget to play football. This is a very good outside corner. And let's say you can get a Quinyon Mitchell, a Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, any of these guys that you value, and you have your corners locked up for the next 4 to 5 years with control, you are setting yourself up for success. And that's exactly where I see this team benefiting the most. And then with edge, the Jaguars, they could go and get good edge players in the 3rd and 4th round. There is a handful of guys that the Jaguars could go out there and get. Guys like Justin Aboigbe, Muhammad Kamara. There's a lot of guys out there that they could go get as an edge 3 midway through the draft that are still going to be valuable DPRs, designated pass rushers, that are going to help be change of pace guys. Because you look at the defensive front 7, you've got talent with Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and now Eric Armstead. How can you bring in change of pace guys that are younger, and guys that are going to help provide on 3rd down and distance situations when you're trying to get to the quarterback? And like you mentioned, you got the AFC South quarterbacks getting better. Guys going into year 2, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. That's just where I see the Jaguars' positional needs being ranked on my board.
Yeah, and I hear you on that. And it's funny because you mentioned the Trevor Lawrence not having like a top 15 wide receiver. Do you know what happened on Trevor Lawrence's first ever throw at Clemson?
Was it a bomb to T. Higgins?
It was a touchdown to T. Higgins.
How did I know?
That was the last time
he had.
And you know, that's no disrespect to Christian Kirk and you know these different guys,
yeah,
but man,
love these guys, love them.
And one thing, you know, because you're kind of saying when it comes to your like needs, like for me, I agree with a lot of what you say, but I do go back to what I said at the beginning. Like the Jaguars need an elite wide receiver 1, and they need a good cornerback. That's just how I feel, and I feel like, you know, you can get that pretty good cornerback on day 2. I think there will be plenty of them there. And
plenty.
And at number 17, it's just all about, man, because you don't know how the board is going to fall. You don't know how much these GMs are going to love these like wide receivers. And a lot of times people have the same sentiment as us. We're talking about getting Trevor Lawrence a wide receiver 1. Everybody else is talking about getting their quarterback a wide receiver 1, because a lot of times these GMs, their jobs are tied to the quarterback, and a lot of times quarterback success is tied to their wide receivers. So
yes,
that's it'll be. I really hope that something happens where, you know, the value falls to where, you know, the Jaguars can get a good one at 17. But you know, if there's 5 or 6 receivers that go off before the Jaguars pick at number 17, you know, I don't want to get the scraps. I'd rather kind of wait. You know, till the value is there a little bit better, and you know, on day 2.
For sure. And 2 things that I want to address with that, I think you brought up some good points, is 1, you got to see how the board falls. You got to make sure that you don't just reach for a positional need. But two, here's how I would put it. Are there wide receiver ones that can absolutely take your offense to the next level in round one? Yes, there are. Are they there in round two? Not really. And that's just being honest. That's just from my personal evaluation of all of these prospects that I have watched. Now, there's a handful of names that could potentially turn into that. Xavier Legette definitely has the physical tools and the athleticism to potentially be that, but we haven't seen enough of it, right? Guys like Keon Coleman, Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson, who else am I forgetting? Tez Walker. All of these guys, I think, are bona fide wide receiver twos, right? Do I want a team full of wide receiver twos for Trevor Lawrence? No, I do not. But what you could do is you could get that wide receiver one if the value's there in the first round and still get a legitimate starting outside corner in round 2 or 3. You can get a Jarian Jones. You can get a Renardo Green. You can get possibly a Chris Abrams-Drain. You could go get TJ Tampa. There's a lot of very good starting outside corners that can fit your scheme going into the second and third round. So you're kind of playing like devil's advocate. Like, do I really want to go corner and get this guy that I think is great, but also know that I can get a starting outside corner in the second or third round when I know in the second or third round I'm probably not getting a wide receiver one that can really just exponentially take this offense to a whole nother level.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And, we don't know how the board's going to shape up. It's just we really got to hope that, because I remember I was actually rewatching some of my draft reactions from 2020 because I want to go back and like do a video on like my previous reaction. I remember
it was CJ Henderson and Kayvon Chase, and I was trying to think who we took in 2020.
Yeah, I remember it was like in 2020, I felt like we were just getting dudes sniped from us. Like I really wanted Derek Brown. He got picked right before CJ Henderson. I really wanted CeeDee Lamb. He got picked right before Kayvon Chase on. And then, we
Justin
pivoted
Jefferson.
and yeah, Justin Jefferson was, he was of course after
Chase on.
Kayvon Chase
Sakuru,
on. So
Sakuru.
I just really hope that we don't get players sniped from us this year. And, a lot of times these GMs kind of know what other GMs want, so they try to move forward in front of them.
Of course.
Turnbull has been pretty aggressive in his drafts. I mean, Caldwell never moved up and back at all in the first round of his drafts. And
he was pretty stagnant.
And we've had 3 drafts with Trent Baalke, and in 2 of those drafts, he's moved back and forth in the first round. And, even this last draft, like, a lot of people look at it and it's like we drafted Anton Harrison. We moved back 3 spots to get him, right? Do you know one of the players that we netted in that move back?
Netted as in like the first round, or
so we netted like a 4th, a 5th, and a 7th, and that 5th round pick turned into Antonio Johnson. So
I was about to say if it was the 5th round, I was gonna say that's Antonio, because Ventrell was 4th, Tank was 3rd, Brenton was 2nd. God, I still can't believe he took Brenton Strange and Tank Bigsby second and third round.
I know, but that move back, I mean, did the Jaguars get their second best player in that draft from moving back 3 spots?
Antonio Johnson is by far the second best player in that class, because I think you can solidify Anton as the next 10 years if all remains well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he is undoubtedly going to be on this offensive line as long as Trevor Lawrence is our quarterback. But no, I think Antonio Johnson, he's got to be the second best player from that class. Like, time will continue to tell, but man, like, we whiffed with that class. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I do not see Brenton Strange or Tank Bigsby, and I hope I'm wrong.
I just don't see the upside there,
I don't. I see zero upside. And, did you watch the conference today?
I watched a little bit of it, yeah.
Okay,
it's
did you
really
see
hard
a little
for me
bit
to listen
about
to Baalke, I'll be honest with you. It's very hard for me to listen to Baalke.
It is. The guy says a whole lot of nothing, but says a lot at the same time, but says nothing.
Yeah.
And his voice, man, he puts some like lotion on those vocal cords or something.
I know,
He sounds like Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
But no, did you see the question potentially about short yardage situations? Like, hey, you guys brought in Mitch Morris, you re-signed Ezra, you took Tank last year to be in their short yardage situations. Did you hear them talk about that at all?
No, you got to tell me.
Okay, so just long story short, Doug was basically like, we're trying to address that. I feel like we're in a much better situation moving forward with that. And he was like, basically, I don't want to say he was just outright saying like Tank's going to be our short yardage back, but he said Tank's name first and then later got to Travis Etienne. Like
Yeah.
he made sure it was like Bigsby is kind of our short yardage guy, and he better have a damn good second year because we cannot blow a third round pick on a guy who just doesn't pan out, especially at the running back position when you didn't need it. Same thing with a run blocking tight end in the second round. Look, I'm not here to dwell on the past, even though we're sitting here doing it, but you got to be better than that. I trust Trent to take a first round selection. Everything after that is up in the air. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't know.
I mean, it felt like we were coming off a Super Bowl and we were just doing YOLO picks, and it was like,
screw it.
Like that, and that's kind of been his theme. I mean, in a previous draft, we traded up and drafted the linebacker in the first round, and Devin Lloyd. I wasn't a huge fan of the move, but I was like, you know what?
He's gonna be a good player this year. I bet he breaks out. But go ahead.
I just wasn't a huge fan of the positional value, so I was like, okay, it's fine. You get a linebacker, that's fine. In the third round, you drafted like Chad Muma. When you look at it, you had just signed Foye Oluokun that year, and then a month later, you trade up in the first round to get Devin Lloyd. Where does he fit into the situation? And that answer 2 years later is that he's a special teamer and a backup. Like, it's crazy, man.
It is. I don't know if I trust Trent in the third round, but before we gonna go ahead and start being too long-winded with all of this and kind of just ranking on Balky the entire time, because he has his positives just like any other general manager. UCF, man, I gotta know though, if there's a guy at 17 overall, because I know we've talked about a lot of positional groups, one, maybe two guys max, that you're like, hey, if this guy falls on the board at 17 overall, there's not even thinking twice. We are running up to that podium and we're putting his name on that card. Give me a guy or two who you think that should be for the Jaguars.
I mean, I am honestly, if we want to start out with an obvious, I really do like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. Like, I think that he's severely underrated. And I think he's a guy that not only can he, play the outside and make those, and make those catches and make those moves there, but I think he's also a guy that could, run a slant route and take it 60 yards to the house. Like, he just has that like speed, and I see a lot of really, really good things out of him. And I know some people like AD Mitchell more than him, and I know there's a
lot of people like AD Mitchell more than BTJ
with those kind of takes, but like, I think like he could end the season and be like, yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. was in that, first tier of wide receivers there. So that is a big one I look at. Also one that might be a little bit off the wall, but if like a Dallas Turner from Alabama were to fall, like, man, if we could get, imagine our third down pass rushing group with like Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Dallas Turner, and like Eric Armstead on the field, bro. Like, that should be an illegal pass rush tandem there. So, that's one guy, that I would take. And then, those are two of the guys. And, I know we spoke, and I think Taron Arnold is also a very good cornerback now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's like, which cornerback do you favor the most? And this is one that a lot of people juggle with. Some people like Nate Wiggins a little bit more. Some people are pretty high on Kool-Aid. And, this is assuming that Quinion Mitchell is gone, because I feel like, a lot of people are kind of putting Quinion Mitchell above the other guys. But, some of those guys, like if we end up with any of those guys, I would be pretty pumped on draft day.
Yeah, I think for me, but before I kind of go ahead and give you my two guys that I would absolutely undoubtedly take at 17 overall if they were there. For me, between Quinion Mitchell, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Terrion Arnold, and we're assuming a healthy Kool-Aid because he's still post-surgery with his Jones fracture in his foot. To me, I don't see much separation. Like, they're all 1A, 1B, and 1C to me. I think in the right system, with the right team and the personnel and coaching around them, all three of those guys can absolutely be all pro level corners at the next level. But you took my first answer. It's Brian Thomas Jr. Like, realistically, wide receiver, we know the top three guys are going to be gone off the board at the receiver position. If we can get a Brian Thomas Jr. in here, even though I don't expect Balky to take a wide receiver, that to me is a game changer, because you're not only asking him to come in here and to be a difference maker, he doesn't have to be a difference maker his first year in the league. Now, I know he's going to produce. I know he's going to get his looks and opportunities, but you've still got Evan Ingram. You've still got ETN out of the backfield, Gabe Davis, who you just paid a lot of money to, Christian Kirk in the slot, and you've still got Zay Jones, right? You're not asking a rookie wide receiver, even a guy who is as talented as Brian Thomas Jr., to come in and immediately just come in and dominate. So that relieves a little bit of pressure off of him, even though he's got all the physical attributes and athleticism that you want to see. And then secondly, it is Terrion Arnold. Like if I had a guy that I just slightly value over the others, it's got to be Terrion Arnold. Like I said, that's nothing to slight against Kool-Aid McKinstry or Quinyon Mitchell. I just like what Terrion Arnold brings to the film. The only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit with him is not necessarily his 40 speed, which I think was like a 4.5 at the combine, which, you know, kind of shook a little bit of people. I never got his pro day numbers. I couldn't find it, but it's just down the field speed, right? How is he going to keep up with some burners? You talked about earlier, like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, guys that I know that can just absolutely burn you down the field. How is he going to be able to keep up with them stride for stride? I definitely saw some issues with that on tape in a couple of different games, but otherwise, I have no questions about a guy like Terrion Arnold. That is a guy I am absolutely signing at 17 overall if he's there on the board for the Jaguars.
Yeah, man. It'll be sweet to see how this thing plays out. I know I'm anxious for it. I mean, 1 week from today, you'll be right in the middle of the first round of the draft. And man, I'm just fired up for it. I can't wait to see what the Jaguars do. And hopefully we get better. Hopefully we get a bunch of value. I mean, you look back at some of these drafts that the Lions have been having, or like the Rams, man, we need a home run draft. Okay. We need to have a 2021 type of draft where we get, you know, like game changers like ETN, Tyson Campbell. We got Andre Sisco. You know, we need one of those types of drafts where we just find value all over the place. We find guys that turn into starters and just guys that can propel this team forward. Because look, if we have another slump draft like the 2023 draft, we're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, all these players getting more expensive. You know, there's a reason why we're still paying Brandon Sheriff, because we haven't been able to, you know, we missed on Ben Barch. We missed on Luke Forner probably. So we're expensive on the interior of the offensive line, where honestly it's full of Band-Aids right now with Ezra Cleveland, you know, with Mitch Morse and Brandon Sheriff. And, you know, you got to start finding guys on, you know, like last year you found a starter in the 5th round with Antonio Johnson. We have 2 4th rounders. Can you imagine if you found 2 really good starter level players there, and just, you know, figure out, trust your board, trust your scouts. I think that's one big thing with Balky. It feels
do we trust Balky's board though? Do we trust his board?
It's just that's my thing. It's like Balky needs to trust his scouts, because I think sometimes,
there we go,
you know, they get consensus on stuff, and all of a sudden I literally think Balky just does YOLO picks, where it's like, you know what, I like this guy, we're getting him, and then it's like, all right, well, whatever. You know, I just, you know, I don't like to talk too down on him all the time, but I think he had a good free agency. I give him credit for his free agency, but if you don't draft well, you're not going to have a good team. You know what I mean? That's just how it is.
For sure. And look at the Lions. Like, right, the Lions, my entire life, have just been god awful, like our Jaguars, right? But what have they done these last couple of seasons? Had phenomenal draft classes, and look at where it got them. They should have been in the Super Bowl. They blew that lead of the 49ers. What was it, a 2-3 touchdown lead in the NFC Championship game, because they drafted well. I forget the name of their general manager off the top of my head, but him and Dan Campbell cohesively working together. You see that their list is fluid. Their draft board has been well, and they've made the right decisions, and it's paid off for them, right? The Jaguars, like you said, desperately need another 2021 draft class, because like you also mentioned with the interior of the offensive line, before we kind of wrap this thing up, we've got a bunch of Band-Aids. If only we would have taken an Osiris Torrance instead of Bretton Strange, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation. And, you know, we passed up on him, you know, so, you know, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? But bulky gonna bulky, right? So time will tell. Let's just remain optimistic for the next 7 days or so, because I will say right here on record, as the draft is going on, I will not be watching it live. Unfortunately, I will be working the game 3 of the Orlando Magic playoffs, man.
Are you even a fan, bro?
Am I even a fan? The biggest NFL event of the year for the Jaguars every year. I'm not even going to be watching it, but I'm going to be doing my job working game 3. Who are we playing? The Cleveland Cavaliers, man. I'm excited, man. Magic are going to win in 6. Let me put that on record
let's
here
go
right
Magic,
now.
Man. I'm pumped about it. I'm happy the Magic
are you even a fan? Are you even a fan?
Of the Magic? I am a major bandwagon, okay? They're in the playoffs. I'm a fan again, baby.
Hey, are you going to pull up? You going to pull up to a game, man? Game 3 or 4, man? Come on.
Yeah, I gotta check out to see what ticket prices are. I know last time I
Dude,
spent a pretty penny, so
yeah, dude. No, I'll tell you right now. I think first of all, tickets are $84 for the cheapest, and like I said, I won't be too long-winded with this. But man, when I tell you the Kia Center has been electric all year long, dude, trust me, you will never experience an atmosphere like you've experienced this year, and especially in the postseason. You're gonna do yourself a disservice by not being at a game, and I mean that completely objectively. It has been so loud for those games this year. Like I,
see,
I
I
can't even speak.
I need them to beat the Cavs in this series because like I it's a bad weekend to be having home games in Orlando. Okay, we got the
It is.
NFL draft. I got to
know.
cover it. Okay, I need them
Same.
to advance to the next round and then get some home games up in here.
Yes, and that means that we'll play Boston, but that means the tickets will be even more expensive. But you need to pull up
We
to a
got
Magic
'em.
playoff game before it's too late, though. But thank you guys for sticking around throughout the whole video. UCF, man, thank you for taking time to come on here, talk some NFL draft with me. Like I said, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and put all of UCF's socials, his YouTube, his Twitter, all of that in the link tree in the description down below. Same thing goes for mine, man. Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about some positional values that you guys have highly on your board. And also give me a couple of players that you guys want to potentially see the Jaguars take at 17 overall, assuming that we don't trade up or trade down in this year's draft. Thank you guys again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ. I'm out, y'all. And like always, let's go Jags.